Hi, this is Heather Jerome from heatherjerome.ca and from the sonatasandpartitas.com. This video is a tutorial video about the Andante in C major, BWV 1003. Now, if you haven't seen the other tutorial that I made about this Andante, please do watch it. You'll probably find it interesting. It discusses the Andante maybe in a different light than what's been discussed elsewhere. But in this video, I would like to discuss a more common topic, and that is when you have these beautiful, slow, lyrical pieces, people discuss them as in you have important, maybe structural notes, and then you have other notes that are less important. And I would like to have a look at this piece in that regard, but I'd also like to sort of pre-frame this by saying that what I really don't suggest is that players, quote unquote, bring out those what's called the important notes and play down what's called the unimportant notes, because these unimportant notes, those are notes that I think they do either two things. One of them is they ornament the main, more structural notes. The other thing they do is they take you to those structural notes. And so I often think of it more as like we have moving notes and landing notes. And the thing is that those moving notes are maybe the ones that ornament the landing notes. Those notes, those are the beautiful ones. The other ones, generally, like if you're going to take out all the decorations, the other ones usually just move by step. So let's have a look at it in that regard. Now, Bach doesn't start off right away with the spinning out of his melody. What he does is he starts by establishing his key and setting his mood. And he also makes the point that what we have now is vocal music. The other thing he does that I discussed in this previous tutorial video is it's like an exploration of all the different intervals. And so we have these series of intervals that are just spilling into one another. So we get a third, a fourth, second, sixth, high tone, seventh, sixth, and then back to a third. And now we have our key. We know we're in the key of C. And as soon as that's firmly established, that's when the melody soars up to the higher C. And as it lands on the higher C, the bass leaves. So now we're on our way. And then we have B. So we had, and then to B. And then essentially that's what we have. But Bach repeats the G, so we have this beautiful dissonance and then resolves it. And then, now that's not what Bach does, but that is what we're led to expect. But instead, Bach repeats the fact that he's repeating his bass note to a dissonance, and then he, well, a lot of people say this is their favorite part in the piece. And I'd like to look at this because why is Bach doing this? Why doesn't he just keep the G down there? Is it just because he thinks it's prettier to do that little thing? Well, if he kept on doing what he was doing and going to where we expected it to go, where he led us to expect, he would have to go. He would end up in the tenor or bass register. And this is something that happens quite commonly in the sonatas and partitas, and it's really, I think, especially striking in these slow lyrical movements, is that basically when he's running out of notes in his register, he just does this beautiful thing and moves the melody up an octave. So here, we end up getting this interval a beat later, and then we have F, and E. So we've gone with an octave transposition, and then we're going to make it to G. So here we have he has taken us back into that lower register. And closed it up at the top and cadenced on G. So it's like he's got this spinning out of a melody that pretty much stays in the soprano register, but really kind of intertwines and ties in both registers. And that's the underlying structure of it. And then over top of that, we have these little strings of notes that either lead us to the next structural place or else that ornament it, like to ornament the fact that we are working in two registers at the same time. Now, my challenge is try to do this for the second half. The second half is maybe not quite so straightforward as the first half, because here in the first half, it's definitely on, you can see it on the beats, on the first beats of every bar. We get our new structural tone, except for the place where he's making us wait that extra beat and taking it up the octave. But in the second half, it's all there too. And it's a little bit more developed. Now, try to do it. And if you run into, like, you just don't know where you are, go to the places where you do know where you are. Like, there's some places where, you know, the music will actually stop on this E minor cadence, or places where it's very obvious. Now, once you've found the more obvious parts in that melodic outline, see if you can see how they're led into and how they're led away from, and then try to piece those strands together. Now, there's one more thing I wanted to call your attention to in this video, perhaps as another challenge. If you haven't seen the Andante tutorial, the very first one that I made, where I discussed the very unusual beaming in this movement. Now, if you look at the first measure, you'll see that the bass notes, there are 6 bass notes all in one beam. The second measure goes 2 plus 4, and the third is 2 plus 2 plus 2. Now, my challenge to you is, can you figure out why? And in the earlier video, I actually explained how when Frank and I were working on this, we basically asked every single violinist that we came across, and they all told us the same thing, which is that they hadn't noticed it. And that's when I really realized that when you make arrangements, you run into questions that you don't otherwise run into. But it is a really interesting question, and it does yield some interesting answers. So see if you can figure that out. And if you can't, just go ahead and click on the link that I will paste below, and you can watch the video and see what Frank and I made of it. So I hope you found this helpful. If you'd like to find out when more videos are uploaded, you can subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications. If you want to explore our website at sonatasandpartitas.com, there are a lot of articles and videos there too, the same videos that are on the YouTube channel. And you can also buy the arrangements of the Sonatas and Partitas by Frank Coots and myself. They're at that website. And again, it is sonatasandpartitas.com.